I never thought I'd be grateful for those 3 years I spent in Florence. But looking back now, I realize that sometimes the universe prepares us for moments we never see coming. And trust me, I never saw this coming. My name is Dorothy Fletcher. I'm 64 years old, and until recently, I thought I had this whole widowhood thing figured out. My husband Richard passed away 6 years ago, and after the grief settled, I built myself a quiet, comfortable life. I had my book club, my garden, my weekly dinners with my son Michael. I thought I knew where I stood in the world. I thought I understood my place in my own family. I was wrong. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning, or at least, at the beginning of the end. Michael is my only child. He's 32 now, works in commercial real estate, has his father's steady temperament, and unfortunately, his father's blind trust in people. Richard was the same way. Saw the best in everyone, sometimes to his own detriment. I loved that about him, even when it drove me crazy. I see that same quality in Michael, and it terrifies me. About 8 months ago, Michael started dating Sophia. Sophia Romano. She always made sure to include that last name. Romano, she'd say, drawing out the vowels. Very Italian, very traditional family. She was 28, worked in marketing, had that polished, Instagram-ready look that seems to be required for women her age. Long, dark hair, perfect makeup, designer handbags that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. From the start, she made a point of her Italian heritage. She'd pepper her conversation with Italian words, usually mispronounced. "Ciao, Dorothy," she'd say when she saw me. "Come stai?" And I'd smile and say I was fine, and she'd launch into some story about her nonna's recipe or her family's village in Tuscany. Here's what she didn't know. I spoke Italian, fluently, not just tourist Italian or cookbook Italian. Real, conversational, lived-in Italian. When Richard and I were younger, he got transferred to Florence for 3 years. This was back in the early 90s, before Michael was born. We lived in a small apartment near the Ponte Vecchio, and I threw myself into the language like my life depended on it. I took classes, practiced with our neighbors, got lost in conversations at the local markets. By the time we left, I was dreaming in Italian. I could discuss philosophy, argue about politics, understand regional dialects. It became part of me, but when we came back to the States, I rarely used it. Richard's company brought him home, Michael was born, and life took over. Years passed. I'd read Italian novels sometimes, keep up with Italian news online, but I didn't broadcast it. Why would I? It was just something I knew, like how to parallel park or make a proper pie crust. So when Sophia started dating Michael and began her little Italian performance, I said nothing. At first, I found it amusing, harmless even. She clearly wanted to impress us with her heritage, and who was I to rain on her parade? Michael seemed happy. That was what mattered. But as weeks turned into months, something started to bother me. Not the Italian pretensions, those I could handle. It was something else. Something in the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Something in the way she'd steer Michael away when he started telling me about his life. Little moments that added up to a growing unease. "Mom, we're not coming to Sunday dinner this week," Michael would say. "Sophia thinks we need more couple time." "Mom, could you not tell that story about me at Boy Scout camp? Sophia thinks it's embarrassing." "Mom, maybe you could text before stopping by." Sophia likes advance notice. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself this was normal, healthy even. A man should prioritize his partner. A woman has a right to boundaries in her relationship. I'd read enough articles in women's magazines to know that mother-in-laws who couldn't let go were a cliché, a joke, a problem to be solved. So I stepped back. I gave them space. I waited for my phone to ring instead of calling. I asked permission before offering help. I made myself smaller, quieter, less present. And I hated it. But I did it because I loved my son, and I wanted him to be happy. Then came Thanksgiving. "Mom, great news!" Michael called me 3 weeks before the holiday. His voice had that excited pitch it got when he was trying to convince himself of something. "Sophia's mom is coming to visit for Thanksgiving. Her name's Francesca. She's flying in from Boston. Sophia really wants us all to have dinner together. You know, blend the families." "That sounds wonderful, honey," I said, and I meant it. Maybe this was a turning point. Maybe this was Sophia extending an olive branch. Should I host? I have plenty of room. There was a pause. Actually, Sophia thought it would be easier at our place. Her mom has dietary restrictions, and Sophia wants to make some traditional Italian dishes. You understand, right? What I understood was that I was being managed. But I said, of course. What can I bring? Just yourself, Mom. Just yourself. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, Sophia called me. This was unusual. Sophia rarely called me directly. Everything went through Michael. Dorothy, hi. Her voice had that bright, brittle quality of someone making an effort. I wanted to talk to you about Thursday. My mom. She's very traditional, very old-school Italian. She doesn't always understand American ways. I'm sure we'll get along fine, I said. Right. But also, she mostly speaks Italian. Her English is okay, but she's more comfortable in her own language. So don't worry if she seems quiet or if she and I are talking in Italian at dinner. We're not being rude, it's just easier for her. Something prickled at the back of my neck. A warning I couldn't quite name. That's perfectly fine, Sophia. I understand. Great! Oh, and Dorothy? One more thing. My mom has very strong opinions about family and traditions. If she seems a bit formal or standoffish, don't take it personally. That's just her generation. I appreciate the heads up, I said. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, looking at the photo of Richard on the windowsill. I don't like this, I told him. Something's wrong. But Richard wasn't there to answer, and I had no proof of anything except a feeling. Thanksgiving Day arrived cold and gray, threatening rain. I spent the morning making a pecan pie, Richard's favorite, even though Sophia had specifically said not to bring anything. Some rebellions are small. I arrived at Michael's apartment at 3 o'clock, as instructed. He and Sophia lived in a modern building downtown, all exposed brick and industrial chic, the kind of place that looked impressive in photos but felt cold in person. Michael answered the door, and my heart squeezed at the sight of him. He looked tired. When had he started looking so tired? Mom! Come in, come in! He took my pie, kissed my cheek. Sophia's in the kitchen with her mom. They're just finishing up. The apartment smelled like roasting turkey and something else, something sharp and herbal I couldn't place. I heard voices from the kitchen, rapid and fluid. Italian. They were speaking Italian. I took off my coat, smoothed my hair, reminded myself to be gracious, to be kind, to be small. Mama, vieni, Sophia called out. Dorothy's here. A woman emerged from the kitchen, and I got my first look at Francesca Romano. She was in her late 50s, expensively dressed in black slacks and a silk blouse, her dark hair swept up in an elegant twist. She had Sophia's sharp cheekbones and the same assessing gaze. Mrs. Fletcher, she said, her accent thick and deliberately pronounced. So nice to finally meet you. Sophia speaks of you often. I'll bet she does, I thought, but I smiled and shook her hand. Please, call me Dorothy. It's wonderful to meet you too. Dorothy brought pie, Michael said, holding it up like a peace offering. Francesca's smile didn't reach her eyes. How? Traditional. Sophia is making tiramisu, but perhaps we have room for both. The implication was clear. Your American pie can't compete with authentic Italian dessert. But I kept smiling. Dinner was set for 4 o'clock. The table looked beautiful, I had to admit. Sophia had set it with white linens and autumn flowers, candles flickering in the dimming afternoon light. We took our seats, Michael at the head of the table, Sophia to his right, Francesca to his left, and me at the far end, like an afterthought. The food came out in waves. Antipasti, then pasta, then the turkey with Italian seasonings I didn't recognize. Sophia and Francesca kept up a steady stream of commentary, half in English, half in Italian. Michael tried to translate sometimes, but they'd wave him off. Is just cooking talk, Francesca said. Very boring for you. I ate and nodded and played my part. The dutiful mother-in-law, grateful to be included. And then, about halfway through the meal, something shifted. Sophia got up to check on the tiramisu in the kitchen. Francesca excused herself to use the bathroom. I heard them meet in the hallway just outside the dining room, their voices low. They thought we couldn't hear them. Or maybe they thought it didn't matter. because who would understand? But I understood every word. Quanto ancora dobbiamo sopportare questa donna? Francesca said. How much longer must we endure this woman? My hands froze on my fork. Lo so, Mama, lo so, Sophia replied. I know, Mama, I know. Ma è quasi finita, but it's almost over. Non capisco perché Michael sia così attaccato a lei, Francesca continued. I don't understand why Michael is so attached to her. È così invadente. Sempre qui, sempre con domande. She's so intrusive, always here, always with questions. I carefully set down my fork. My heart was pounding so hard I thought Michael might hear it. Sophia laughed, low and mean. Non preoccuparti. Dopo il matrimonio stabiliremo dei confini appropriati. Lei imparerà il suo posto. Don't worry. After the wedding, we'll establish proper boundaries. She'll learn her place. E se non lo fa? And if she doesn't? Allora Michael dovrà scegliere. E sappiamo già cosa sceglierà. Then Michael will have to choose. And we already know what he'll choose. The bathroom door closed. Footsteps returned to the kitchen. I sat there, the words echoing in my head, each one a small knife. Invadente. Intrusive. Il suo posto. Her place. Michael dovrà scegliere. Michael will have to choose. They came back to the table, all smiles. Sorry for the wait, Sophia said brightly. The tiramisu needed a final check. I looked at my son, at his kind, open face, at the way he smiled at Sophia like she hung the moon. I looked at Francesca, calmly sipping her wine, and at Sophia, touching Michael's hand with such calculated tenderness, and something in me made a decision. Il tiramisù è la mia parte preferita di un pasto italiano, I said clearly. The tiramisu is my favorite part of an Italian meal. The room went silent, completely, utterly silent. Sophia's face drained of color. Francesca's wineglass stopped halfway to her lips. Michael looked confused. Mom, what did you just say? I kept my eyes on Sophia. Ho detto che non vedo l'ora di assaggiare il tiramisù di Sophia. I said I'm looking forward to tasting Sophia's tiramisù. Sono sicura che è delizioso. I'm sure it's delicious. You. Sophia's voice came out as a whisper. You speak Italian? Fluentemente, I replied. Fluently. Ho vissuto a Firenze per 3 anni. È una città bellissima. I lived in Florence for 3 years. It's a beautiful city. Dovresti visitarla un giorno, se non l'hai mai fatto. You should visit someday, if you haven't already. The implication hung in the air. I knew she'd never been to Italy. I knew her traditional Italian family was actually from Boston and had been in America for 4 generations. I knew because I'd heard her telling her mother in Italian about how her great-great-grandfather came through Ellis Island. And I knew what she'd said about me in that hallway. Francesca recovered first, switching to rapid Italian. Sofia, mi avevi detto che non parlava italiano. Pensavo che non lo facesse. Sophia shot back. Non ne ha mai parlato. They were arguing about me in front of me, still too shocked to switch to English. Excuse me, Michael said, his voice tight. Could someone please tell me what's happening? I looked at my son. Really looked at him. And I made another decision. Michael, your girlfriend and her mother have been speaking Italian all evening, saying things they assumed I wouldn't understand, including a conversation they just had in the hallway about how I'm intrusive, how they're planning to establish boundaries after you get married, and how if I don't accept my place, you'll have to choose between us. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom, that can't be. Michael started, but he looked at Sophia, and something in her face must have confirmed it. That's not. You're taking it out of context. Sophia stood up, her voice rising. We were just venting. Everyone vents about their in-laws. In a language you thought I couldn't understand, I said quietly. At a family dinner you insisted on hosting, while being welcomed into my son's life. Francesca had the grace to look uncomfortable. She said something sharp to Sophia in Italian, but I cut her off. No, please. Continue in Italian if you'd like. I understand perfectly. Every word. I looked at Francesca. E le dirò un'altra cosa. Se pensate che mio figlio sceglierà qualcuno che parla di sua madre in questo modo, sottovalutate l'uomo che ho cresciuto. And I'll tell you something else. If you think my son will choose someone who talks about his mother this way, you underestimate the man I raised." Michael stood up. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. "Sophia, is what my mom said true? Were you really talking about her like that?" "Michael, baby, you have to understand. Yes or no?" Sophia's eyes darted between us. "Your mother is being dramatic." It was just, "Yes or no, Sophia." She broke. "Fine! Yes! But you have no idea what it's like, Michael. She's always there, always hovering, always judging. I was just telling my mother how we need to set boundaries when we get married. Is that so wrong?" "When we get married?" Michael's voice was quiet. Too quiet. "I haven't asked you to marry me." "Yet," Sophia said quickly. "You haven't asked yet. But we've been together 8 months, and we're practically living together, and I assumed." "You assumed wrong." The words landed like stones in water. Final. Irreversible. "Michael, I think you and your mother should leave." Francesca started to say something, but I spoke first. "Michael, wait." He looked at me, and I saw something in his face I hadn't seen in months. Clarity. "I think we all need a moment to calm down," I said. "This is a lot to process." "Mom, you don't have to." "I know, but I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing this for you." I looked at Sophia. "You're right that I've been around a lot. I have been. Because my husband died and my son is all I have left, and I was trying to be part of his life without being intrusive. Clearly, I failed at that balance." "Dorothy, I didn't mean—" "Let me finish." My voice was steel. "But here's what you need to understand, Sophia. I would have given you grace. If you'd come to me honestly and said, 'Dorothy, I need more space,' or 'Dorothy, could we establish some boundaries?' I would have listened. I would have adjusted. Because I love my son, and I want him happy." I stood up, my hands steady on the table. "But what you did instead was mock me behind my back, in a language you thought I couldn't understand, while smiling to my face. You made plans to manage me, to put me in my place, to force my son to choose. And that's not setting boundaries. That's manipulation." Tears were running down Sophia's face now, but I couldn't find it in myself to care. "You're right that Michael will have to choose," I continued. "But it won't be between you and me. It'll be between someone who respects him enough to be honest and someone who plays games." I picked up my purse and my coat. "I'm going home. Michael, take all the time you need to think about this. I'll be there when you're ready to talk." "Mom, wait." Michael grabbed my arm gently. "Please don't go. This is your Thanksgiving too." "It's okay, sweetheart." "Really?" I kissed his cheek. "You have some things to figure out. And I have some thinking to do too." I walked to the door, and then I remembered something. I turned back to Francesca, who'd been silent through all of this. Tra l'altro," I said, "and by the way, il mio italiano è migliore del vostro. Potete sentire l'accento di Boston ogni volta che parlate. My Italian is better than yours. I can hear your Boston accent every time you speak." It was petty. It was small. It was perfect. I walked out into the cold November evening and got into my car. My hands shook as I started the engine. Reaction was setting in now, adrenaline giving way to exhaustion. I drove home slowly, carefully, like I was carrying something fragile. Maybe I was. Maybe I was carrying the last shreds of my dignity, my sense of self, the version of myself I'd almost lost trying to be what I thought everyone needed me to be. My house was dark and empty when I got there. I turned on the lights, put on the kettle, and sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Richard and I had eaten thousands of meals. The same table where Michael had done his homework, where I'd paid bills and made plans and built a life. The tears came then. Not for Sophia or her mother or the ruined holiday, but for myself. For how small I'd made myself. For how I'd apologized for existing, for loving my son, for wanting to be part of his life. Never again, I thought. Never again. My phone buzzed. Michael. "Mom, are you home? Can I come over?" Of course. He arrived 20 minutes later, looking wrecked. I made him tea, and we sat at the table, and he told me everything. "She's been doing this for months," he said, "making little comments about you. Nothing I could point to exactly, but always diminishing you somehow, making me feel guilty for spending time with you." And I let her. God, Mom, I'm so sorry I let her. You didn't know. I should have known. You're my mother. You raised me alone after Dad died. You worked 2 jobs to put me through college. You've never been anything but supportive and kind. And I let some woman I've known for 8 months make me doubt you. She's very good at what she does, I said quietly. Manipulators usually are. I broke up with her. After you left. Her mother tried to defend her, said you were overreacting, that it was just cultural differences or something, but I told them both to leave. Michael. No, Mom. You were right. About all of it. She was playing games, making plans about our future without talking to me. She even had a timeline. Wedding next fall, house in the suburbs, kids within 2 years. I found a notebook in her purse while she was packing. She had it all mapped out. He put his head in his hands. How did I not see it? Because you wanted to see the best in her, I said. You have your father's heart. That's not a weakness, Michael, but it means you need to be careful. We talked for hours that night. About Sophia, about boundaries, about how I'd been making myself smaller and how that wasn't healthy either. I don't want to be the kind of mother-in-law who interferes, I told him, but I also don't want to disappear. I want to be part of your life in a way that's healthy for both of us. Then we'll figure it out together, he said. No more me letting someone else dictate our relationship. No more you apologizing for existing. It's been 6 months since that Thanksgiving. Michael's single now, taking his time, being more careful. He comes for Sunday dinner every week, and we've established better boundaries, the kind that come from honesty and love rather than manipulation. I've started taking Italian conversation classes again, meeting with a group of retired women who lived in Italy at various points in their lives. We meet for coffee and speak only Italian for 2 hours every Thursday. It feels good to reclaim that part of myself. And I've been thinking a lot about what I would say to other women who might find themselves in similar situations. Women who are trying to navigate the impossible space between being present and being intrusive, between loving their children and giving them space. Here's what I'd tell them. You are not a burden. You are not intrusive for loving your children and wanting to be part of their lives. You don't have to make yourself small to make others comfortable. But also, you have to be willing to be honest. If someone has a genuine concern about boundaries, they should be able to come to you directly, and you should be able to hear them without becoming defensive. What happened to me wasn't about boundaries. It was about respect. Sophia didn't respect me enough to have an honest conversation. She didn't respect Michael enough to include him in her plans for their future, and she didn't respect herself enough to build a relationship on honesty rather than manipulation. I look back now on that Thanksgiving dinner, and yes, part of me wishes it had gone differently, but another part of me is grateful. Grateful that I knew Italian, grateful that I trusted my instincts, grateful that I found my voice again before I lost it completely. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives are also the most clarifying. Sometimes we need to hear the truth, even when it's cruel, to understand what's really happening. And sometimes, knowing a second language isn't just about communication, it's about revelation. It's about seeing who people really are when they think you're not listening. I'm 64 years old, and I've learned that respect isn't something you demand, but it's absolutely something you deserve. You deserve to be treated with honesty and kindness by the people in your life. You deserve to take up space in the world. You deserve to be valued, not managed. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. Not your children's partners, not society's expectations, not even your own doubts. You are enough. You have always been enough. And if someone thinks you need to be put in your place, maybe the real problem isn't where you're standing. Maybe it's that they can't handle the fact that you know exactly where you belong. Stand tall, speak up, and never, ever apologize for loving fiercely and authentically. Because at the end of the day, the people who truly love you won't need you to be smaller. They'll just need you to be you. And that, I've learned, is more than enough.